West London VR race preview straight out of Brompton, NWL, North West London. This is the Brompton Factory, so if you ride one of those foldable bikes, this is where it would have been constructed. As we leave the car park and wind our way out of this industrial estate, owned these days I believe by Segro, the Slough Estates company, as we go around the front of the Brompton Factory here in Greenford, North West London. I do believe Brompton are looking at sites in Kent as well, so this may not remain the site forever, but certainly at the time of recording, that was your Brompton Factory. Now, we're not riding a Brompton, this is a road bike, but of course you'll be doing this on Wahoo RGT, on one of the magic roads in one of the West London VR races. So as you can see, it's sort of a gentle slope out of the factory. There is a longish sort of ascent out of Greenford, as we'll find out shortly. Quite industrialised around this area, although industry very kind of light and modern compared to eras gone by, shall we say. And you see more sort of tower block sort of office accommodation going up rather than factories where things are made. And this is West London in the 21st century. So we go past these roadworks, and of course 21st century, despite the roadworks, you can see the road surface is far from ideal. Not that you'll be suffering from this on the race. Just going over this bridge now, as you can see, every little pothole and crack in the road counts as the camera jolts. Go past the pub and over the bridge. So that's your first little bump for the day. As I say, these these bridges don't really affect the race too much because they're quite short, and with a large peloton and the effect of the draft, most people should whiz through those. But don't worry, there's plenty of long climbing to come. It's not steep. It is, of course, just I suppose gradual as we go up the hill out of Greenford. You can see here going uphill for the first time up Bridget side, and you can see this is the sort of slope you can expect. It's just a gradual long climb up to the hill and then back down to Ruislip. We finish in Ruislip. We start at the Brompton Factory where they make bikes, and we're going to end at the Specialised shop in Ruislip where they sell a certain brand of bicycles. It might be Specialised, but you'll see at the end. So we go from a bicycle factory to a bicycle shop on this particular race. Straight out of Brompton, the Brompton Bicycle Factory, of course, folding bikes. Can you use a Brompton on a smart train? I'm sure you can, actually. I can't see why not if you set it up right, I suppose. No, probably not. I suspect maybe the shape doesn't fit over the smart train. I don't know. Haven't thought that one through. Anyway, as we idle on the pontifications around whether or not a Brompton could be used on a smart trainer, we hit a parade of shops. Still this sort of very slight gentle climb, as you see, and as I say, it is a long gradual climb, attritional if anything, so if you are hanging on the back, make sure you stay tight to get the draft, because once you're off going up this gradual climb, maybe a little bit harder to get on than it is normally, and it's hard enough to get on normally anyway. As we go around the roundabout, these will all be smooth, so these just look like little kinks in the road rather than a full-blown roundabout. As we continue going up over, I think Greenford could do with some new road surfaces, that's for sure. Okay, so things still very slightly uphill, but beginning to flatten out now as we go along the main road here, and the road surface gets better in actual fact, which is good news. You see this filmed during autumn winter, no leaves on the trees, and of course that is the time the ice gets into the tarmac and causes little cracks in the road as the water freezes and then melts again, expanding and then contracting and forcing the little cracks in the road where it seeps in. So a nice little flat section here, nothing too demanding. Again, another roundabout, but this will be smoothed out so that it doesn't particularly show up on the profile, well, not so much the profile, but on the road trajectory as you cycle. It'll just look like a bend as we go around again. I think we're probably at sort of higher points of the ride now, so although the climbing isn't necessarily over, there's it's probably about as high as you get. We are in the Thames Valley, of course, and I suppose this is about the rim or the edge of the Thames Valley. So to our left, if you headed south, you would eventually hit the River Thames a few miles away, which flows through London. Of course, we're in the northwest London area, so we're north of the Thames, reasonably up the valley. The valley in these parts doesn't really get particularly steep. I think there are some very steep hills in the central part of North London, if that makes sense. We don't suffer too badly from steep hills around here, although those of you who like a good hill climb will of course lament the notion that we don't have steep climbs here in northwest London. We have to ride out into the Chiltern Hills for hours. Again, so reasonably fast pace should be expected along here, so I would imagine that it's possible that the peloton will have split into at least two groups during the original attritional climb out of Greenford, as we go down here through the bottom of South Harrow. This will be flat along here for a little while as well. This is South Harrow, as I just said. This road, despite the fact that there is a very slight incline just ahead of us, I would not regard as a hill in terms of a Wahoo RGT race. So don't count on this one too much being a good attack point, and don't worry too much if you're wondering whether you can hang on during this one, because as you can see, it's kind of over already. Again, so flattish, coming. Well, there's a slight decline or descent, so you get the advantage of that short climb. But again, I think in the pack, this is not going to be anything like decisive or likely to break up the race. Again, more flat road as we continue our westward trajectory towards eventually Ruislip. Not a direct route, of course. We like to put in some twists and turns and make it as interesting as we can, and also the objective is to make these races something like 16 kilometres long. These are evening races. They are designed so that you've got enough time to warm up, do the race, have a bath, and probably go and have your dinner, watch a little bit of TV, go to bed before you go to work the next day. So as I say, this is the design and this is the concept. So here we are back up. This is the road that goes from South Harrow to South Ruislip. Now we are finishing in Ruislip, central Ruislip, as opposed to South Ruislip, and of course there are some deviations. We're not going to go straight to the centre of Ruislip here. So we're heading towards South Ruislip now. We'll get to a big roundabout, and that will denote that we're in South Ruislip. But logically, if one were going the most direct route, one would go straight on. We're not going to do that. So, as I say, we have to make these things 16 kilometres long and build in a little bit more climbing for you. That's what we're really doing. If you took the normal road to Ruislip, you would have such a gentle climb you wouldn't notice, but we're going to put something that is a little bit steeper, but again, it's not steep, it's attritional, so watch out for that coming up very, very shortly as we head ever closer to South Ruislip. You can see this very typically 1930s London style of architecture around parades of shops, lots of houses with bay windows, typical of the areas. On, I suppose, the outer side of Harrow rather than the inner side of Harrow, right out through Ruislip, Greenford and places like that. All the places we're cycling today. So we are on the peripheral edge of London. This is commuter land where people jump on a train into London for their central London jobs, assuming they're not working from home, which is, of course, a modern phenomenon. Not totally modern, it has existed in the past, but certainly gaining ground since the advent of COVID. So, as I say, this is very, very flat as we head towards the roundabout at South Ruislip. If you know the area, it's gradually changing. There was a big pub on the corner which has been knocked down and seems to be flats built on it, but you'll recognise all the retail outlets and the petrol station on the corner. Bit of a landmark on the road at the end of Victoria Road, if you know the area at all. And Victoria Road is a road that seems to go from nowhere to nowhere, but seems very important because a lot of people use it. So here we are, Another parade of shops, as is typical with the area. London Red Bus, just to prove we're in London. The pub that has been knocked down, you can just see the flats being built there over the road, Halford. So if you have got a puncture or something like that, you can pop in and get an inner tube just there on the left-hand corner of the roundabout. Now, as I say, you would turn off at that junction there if you were going to Ruislip, the most direct route through Victoria Road. But we're going up here to Eastcote, and this involves a very, very gentle but gradual and longish climb. And as I say, it's not. You can ride it very, very fast. I mean, I'm not saying it's difficult or anything like that, but you will be on an upward trajectory of 1 or 2% for at least a kilometre or two. So just looking out for that as we head up towards Eastcote. These are all if you're from other parts of London and you never come up here, I mean, this is very much a what I call a dormitory area. This really is an area built for commuters, people who are travelling into London. So it doesn't have a lot of its own shall we say, industry, employment or landmarks or reasons to come here. So I can imagine people have seen all these places that I'm mentioning on the London Underground map, because they're all stations for people to get into London, but probably places you've never ever been. And that sentiment, I suppose, is echoed for me. I mean, I look at places on the eastern side of London and I recognise all the tube station names, but couldn't really tell you much about the areas, because they're similar versions of this, where people use those underground lines to get into London. Very well served around here. We have the Central Line, Piccadilly Line, Metropolitan Line and the Chiltern Railway, so very much commuter land. And that same style of semi-detached architecture and bay windows prevailing. Just going up here, there is a little school on the left actually that on Saturday mornings has got a little cycle track just here, and it's for children, and they teach children how to sort of do a little bit of cycle racing. They coach them just on the left there every Saturday morning. So look out for that if you're in the area and you've got a kid. This is for sort of much younger kids, and the good ones will go on and join the Hillingdon slipstreamers who do Saturday mornings at the Hillingdon circuit. So pre-teens, I would say, in the school there. But yep, there's a cycle circuit for pre-teens to be coached. So a little bit of a dip in this road to Eastcote. Familiar little bumps in the camera as we get those winter potholes and cracks in the road that we always get, jolting the camera out of position. And one of those pubs that's turned into a restaurant in modern times. The camera readjusts itself to get a better view of the road up to Eastcote. And you can see this gentle climb still here as we go up towards Eastcote. As I say, it's not a climb that will sort of fragment the peloton over, I don't know, 50 metres or something like that. It's a climb that will attritionally mean that somebody who's clinging onto the back will at one moment just lose the back and never get back on again. So I expect the strong riders will put out a strong pace along here, because you can usually shed people off the back of the peloton by doing that. And they all seem to take little turns in doing it. I don't know how coordinated it may or may not be, but the top riders do like to do this on little bits of the course like this, where they know that somebody on the back, if they drop off, it's so hard to get back on solo back into the group. The gentle gradient still prevailing here as we get ever closer to Eastcote, which again is one of those places that's built around one of the it's developed around the underground station, and like so many places of this ilk around London, you'll get an underground station and parades of shops and a mini town centre around the station. It provides a focal point for the community. So nearly there as we go past the car dealer. We shall shortly go over the no, we won't. We're going left, sorry. Yes, this was to avoid traffic lights, I do beg your pardon. Yes, so we're going to cut through here. Again, this will be flat. So basically, if we'd gone on another 300 or 400 metres, we'd have got a set of traffic lights and turn left, but this avoids it. And we're going to run parallel just south of the Metropolitan and Piccadilly line trains before we eke a right and go over and join the road that we would have been on had we gone through Eastcote. A little bit of a cut through, known to local cyclists. As you weave around, I think the only negative thing about this road is weaving around the parked cars, but it is what it is, and it saves waiting at the traffic lights at Eastcote. And let's face it, you wouldn't really want to sit and watch a film with me at the traffic lights. So this is the other side of the... so if it was a rectangle, instead of going straight on at Eastcote and left, we went left and then right here to rejoin the road that we would have turned into. Just about to go over the railway bridge, which goes over the Metropolitan line, the underground railway. The obviously not underground here, we're at the suburbs, only in central London do they go underground. This is the bridge coming up here. Just get over that. It's again one of those bumps that shouldn't really show up too much at the speed you're doing, because I think the momentum will just take you over this one. It's slightly steep, but we smooth them anyway, so it's not going to really resonate when you're in the race. So here we are. This is a straight across job. Now we're going to go around a few housing estates. Now we're into I suppose the land halfway between Ruislip and Eastcote, so I don't know which one we're in. This again is all this sort of commuter housing, a few bungalows. I had a friend who lived in a street of bungalows, and he said to me, there's a lot of old people live down our road. And I said, well, why is that? And he pointed out that, of course, people don't like going upstairs by bungalows. So I've always had it in my mind that bungalows are for old people, but I'm sure that's not entirely true. It's a bit unfair. So the roadworks hold us all up, and we sit behind the tin van. Now this should really it would be nice to have edited this little bit of traffic light wait out, wouldn't it? But, you can enjoy the back of a van. Probably why I didn't, because it wasn't too long. But anyway, so we avoided the lights at Eastcote, but we just got another set here. Again, down one of these residential roads. We're going to go through a few of these around the back of Ruislip before we curl round and hook ourselves back into Ruislip High Street and finish at the specialised cycling shop, as I mentioned earlier. And you still see the houses with these familiar bay windows from that 1930s style that prevails around these parts. And as we're going westwards, this is flat again. As a kind of guide, because the Thames Valley, the Thames River goes from west to east, the valley is from the north to south. So as a general rule, it's not absolutely sacrosanct, but as a general rule, if you're heading east to westwards in these parts, you'll probably be on the flat. If you're heading north or southwards, you'll probably be on an ascent or a descent. So most of the ascents we've done today are heading northwards up the side of the valley. Most of the flat bits are heading westwards as we make that journey from Greenford to Ruislip via South Harrow and Eastcote, of course. So perhaps I should have filmed this in the summer, although the sun's shining nicely now. So we could have had all the nice blooms from everybody's gardens. If we're going to do residential areas, I suppose you should do them in the summer when everybody's got their gardens shining with bloom and blossom. But nevertheless, quite a sunny day. Now, despite everything I've said, this to me is always sort of just about where the peak of the Thames Valley is, I always think. And there is a little bit of a dip here as we go down to the River Pin, which is obviously higher up than the Thames, certainly at this point, and runs from west to east in these parts. As I say, so we've sort of been over the top of the Thames Valley, and we're now in the River Pin Valley, which is not a notable valley. You wouldn't particularly notice and the river's very small as well. So now the River Pin is on our right. We're heading west to east again, but so we've just been over the top of the Thames Valley, and we're just in this little dent of a valley that is the River Pin. Slight incline here, but nothing significant. It's called Windmill Hill, but I'm dubious as to whether it really qualifies as a hill, given that it doesn't go up very far. And we're going to swing a right here. Now Ruislip High Street is straight ahead there, but again we're going to do a gratuitous little loop, partly because we like to go around some more roadworks, just to show you how much roadworks activity there is in northwest London, and yet we still have lots of potholes in the road. And yeah, I'm sure you'd like to see some more bay windowed houses as we go through residential areas. Just going up to a place called King's College. This is a sports ground. It's actually owned by King's College London, and is used by the community. And I'm not quite sure how this works, but got a nice little skateboard park, a running track, all on the left, and loads of football pitches. So when you come down here on a Saturday morning, you can hear lots of screaming fathers on the touchline shouting at the referee as if it is a matter of life or death. Well, the sons probably just sort of get on with playing football on the pitch. That's all on the left. Ruislip Hockey Club on the right, and straight ahead of us, Ruislip Woods. And some of our other races feature starts in Ruislip Lido, which is the big lake within Ruislip Woods, a little cafe on the left there. Haven't used that for cycling for a long time, partly because on a Sunday morning to take all your cycling group in there, as you can see the football pitches on the left again. The problem is that there's so many sort of people playing football that the cafe's very busy with the football parents, so it's not ideal as a cycling cafe, unfortunately. It's a shame because it's very local to us, but there it is. So again, on this east-west trajectory, we're getting ever closer to the centre of Ruislip. This road will come out on the road from Ruislip to Northwood, on a slope, of course, because it just dips down to the River Pin, and eventually we are going to have to cross the River Pin to in fact we did just cross it, so it's just trying to think, when we were going along by the sports ground we did actually cross River Pin at some point. There is a gentle rise here. Again, this is I suppose I'd describe the edge of the Pin Valley. I don't really think the Pin Valley is of any note, but the reason for the slight rise here is you are just coming to the top of that as we inch towards Ruislip and the finish. I always enjoy riding up this road. It's all down it actually, because it cuts out doing Ruislip town centre. So of course when designing this route and wanted some extra kilometres to take it up to the required distance, this road came to mind straight away. That's one of my favourite little roads to use as a cut through. So here we are. This is the road from Ruislip to Northwood, and let's see if it's got any roadworks on it. It quite often has. I don't think it did when I filmed this one. So we're going to do a right, and we're going to turn away from Ruislip, which may surprise you. But again, we're building up the distance to make it all work for you. This is heading out towards the entrance to Ruislip Lido, which, as I say, some of our other races actually start from around the lake there with its false beach and what have you. We're not going to go in there today, but we are going to go pretty close to the entrance. Ruislip Lido also start with a few local audaxes. And in fact, some of them, when they finish, the really long ones, they will finish at Ruislip Lido, but by the time it gets back, there's nothing there. So if you've ever done audaxes or randonnées, you might call them in your area, but if you're a randonneur and you know that you quite often have to get little receipts to prove proof of passage, there's a BP garage just coming up here, which has been the finish of a few of the organised audaxes, randonnées that finish in Ruislip. They start at the Lido, probably at the pub when it's open, but by the time everybody gets back, or some of the late riders, you have to go into the little BP garage. I said there'd be some roadworks. There we are. Right on cue. So there's the BP garage, and the entrance to the Lido and Ruislip Woods just up on the right as we sit behind another van. One of the benefits of these videos is you can study the back of tradesmen's vans at traffic lights. So left up towards Ruislip Crematorium. Now we're going to do a little loop round. As I said earlier, we are going to hook round and finish back at Ruislip High Street eventually as we go up past the crematorium. Some of the rides that we do that start at Ruislip Lido, when I talk about rides, this is the West London VR races. We do come along this road, and you'll have heard me comment before that this road to me is demarcation where the London buildings sort of cease and you start to get green fields. We're very much on the edge of London here now, and although it doesn't look like it here, in a moment you'll see that the view tends to be buildings on the left and fields on the right, and I think there's pretty much some sort of rule that makes it very, very difficult to build further on the right here, or any more buildings northwards, as they want to retain the green aspect of the borough. So the outer bits of this this borough of London, Hillingdon Borough, are very, very green, and I think they quite like to keep that. And there are certainly parts of it you can ride around. You wouldn't believe you were in London if I showed you a photo of it. So we go past the end of Finebush Lane, one of our little cut-throughs to go up to Harefield on our regular Sunday rides. And we're heading up towards Breakspear Road, which will take us back down towards Ruislip. As I say, this is where you can see buildings on the left, fields on the right, and take a shot from the right, and you could be anywhere, couldn't you, out in the country? Take a shot on the left, and it's like, so which residential area are you in? As I say, there is some sort of rule, I'm sure, that marks this road as the boundary for builders and property developers. We'll see how long that lasts. Now we are heading towards the junction at the end. There's a pub on the right, and we shall be going left as we head towards Ickenham. And again, one of those places you might have seen on the London Underground map, but I have no idea about. Ickenham, another one of those places. It's got an underground station, it's got shops near the underground station, and lots of residential houses, and that is pretty much what happens in these London suburbs, and I'm sure you could say the same of any other major city around the world. This is how it works. So here we are. This is the junction as we're going to turn left into Breakspear Road, and the pub on the right where the green sign is there. You can see that there are buildings on that sort of no buildings side of the road, but they do tend to be older buildings, farm buildings, and so on and so forth. Right, now the sprint along Breakspear Road. I always find this road quite fast. It's probably no reason why it's particularly fast here, because it's dead flat, but generally on a ride, if you're coming down here from Harefield, you'll have built up some momentum on the gentle decline, and you tend to be in sort of, absolutely hammering it down here. You get great speeds, but as I say, I think that's built up from the momentum of earlier, although there's a little bit of a drop here. It does go up right at the end of this road though, so it's not all flat, but as I say, you do tend to go very, very fast along here. If you've come from Harefield, the momentum built up earlier, as I said though. So as you can see, this is sort of this no man's land now between civilization and the countryside. If that's a fair way of putting it. I'm sure the people in the country will remind me that they are more than civilized, and so on and so forth, as we hit some more roadworks. Now these aren't roadworks, these are rail works. This is the building site for the new high-speed rail link, which is going through here, which will link up London and Birmingham and eventually Manchester in the north. Interestingly, there's already a railway bridge over here, but this is the Chiltern line, which I mentioned earlier, going out towards High Wycombe and places like that. A couple more potholes as we now head towards Ickenham. We're very much getting into Ickenham territory and out of the Ruislip zone, I would suggest. And again, this is quite countrified here, isn't it? I mean, you're not very far from all the houses in Ickenham, to be honest, but a nice little bit of road where you can look at the fields on both sides. It does look nicer in the summer, I would hasten to add. It's a little bit barren here in this winter landscape. And here we are. As I said, you're not very far from the Ickenham houses. This is a little cut through. If we went up to the end, as I say, there's a little bit of rise at the end of that road, but we've avoided that for you. This bit's going to be dead flat as we cut through another housing estate. You'll notice the houses are much more modern here, but still retaining that little bay window effect. But these are newer than the 1930s. I would imagine largely post-war houses, I would guess. So probably sometime in the 1950s would be my guess. Not that I'm an expert on these things. Now these houses here These are going back into that 1930s style. So you can see the houses on the edge being added a little bit later than the ones we're now seeing. So here is a little bridge over the River Pin, and it's just a footbridge for cyclists and pedestrians. So the dog moves out of our way very kindly. Thank you, sir. And that is the River Pin. Yes, it's not very big, is it? But there we are. So there's your little cut through. We rejoin the roads again here. Dead flat, and nothing to trouble you in a Wahoo RGT race. Now, it's getting towards the business end of this race now. There's not that far to go before we hit Ruislip High Street. We're about to come out into those shops at Ickenham, which, as I say, most of these underground stations in this area have a few shops built up and developed around them. And we're about to see that here in Ickenham any moment now. So we examine some more front gardens out in front of bay windowed houses. Here we are. So here's the road. This is the road from Uxbridge to Ickenham. It's a dual carriageway, and we're just going to turn left. So it's an easy turn, but not that would have mattered on your Wahoo RGT race anyway, on your avatar. So here we are on the dual carriageway, just going up to the shops at Ickenham, where we'll do a left and head towards West Ruislip. Ruislip is quite a large area, as you can tell. There's Ruislip Woods, Ruislip Gardens, Ruislip Manor, South Ruislip, West Ruislip. No East Ruislip or North Ruislip though. I think North Ruislip is basically Ruislip Woods. So here are the shops, the tube station and the underground station. We're not actually going to pass it because it's just round the corner on the right, and we shall be turning left after the shops. And there's a little Wetherspoons pub here, which is the end of one of the All Axes that finishes round here. There are, the Wetherspoons pub just there on the right, and that's the finish point for one of the winter All Axes that's run in the area. And it's a very nice place to finish. You sort of walk into the warmth of a pub, Wetherspoons pub, and you get some very cheap food and a cheap beer at the end. And the guy stamps your card, and you then sit and chat about your day's experience. A 200-kilometre Audax, that particular one, or randonnée, if you call Audaxes randonnées, whereas we call randonnées Audaxes. Which one's correct? I think randonnée is probably the better description, personally. So, this is the road basically from Hillingdon to Ruislip. This is West Ruislip now that we're coming up to. We're going to go past West Ruislip underground station, and then we're pretty much in the last throes of the race. Now, just before the end, there is a gentle rise, and you will drop down to the finishing line. So the finish should be very, very, very fast. But there is a little bend just before the finish, and that could be quite critical, because remember that Wahoo RGT will automatically brake you on a bend. So those people on the outside will get less braking effect than those on the inside, and it could be a little bit of a shake-up in that last little section as we go. This gentle rise here, this is West Ruislip Underground Station. It's station for the Central Line and the Chiltern Line. Again, this little bridge isn't necessarily one that is going to affect the race too much. It's West Ruislip Station just on the right there. However, you'll notice as soon as we get over this brow, it goes down, and it's the little rise after that that I think may be a key place in the race. So we're just going to get to the bottom of this drop, and then it rises again as we go past the entrance to the golf club. Now, from here on in, it rises and then dips to the finishing line, and this could be the place to attack, and it could be decisive. If you go too early and tire yourself out, it may backfire. On the other hand, if you can get a break here and hold it on the descent, you could be winning, or at least winning your little group. So this is the rise, not steep, nothing steep on our races, and we are very, very close to the finishing line now. So as I say, once we get to the top, there's a little roundabout, the White Bear, and from there it's going to be downhill to the finishing line, and very fast and swift. You can see the sign for the roundabout coming up now, so that tells us, here we are, the White Bear roundabout, and we're going to go straight here, and we're just about at the peak now, and we're going to do a left, and no, we're not, we're going to go straight on, sorry, and this is where it gently drops from here and to the finishing line. Now it's not, as I say, it's not a descent of any sort of great gradient, but it is enough, I think, to cause a speedy finish. I think something happened there and I had to slow the bike down, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was a mechanical, but anyway, trying to get some speed up again now, just to show you that it is going to be a fast finish. You can see it's slightly declining here as we head towards Ruislip High Street. As we hit the High Street, which you can see ahead of you where the buildings go across our view at the front of the road, we're going to hang a left there. That is the bend that I think, if you're unlucky, you're going to get caught braking on, but we shall see. So still gently declining. The shop's now marking the junction with Ruislip High Street, and the left turn just coming up now. There's hardly any distance between this left turn and the finishing line. You are nearly at the finishing line. The Specialised shop is there on the right. You can see it's the, I'm going to go on a little bit and show you where it is. In fact, after filming this, you can see the boarded up shop. The Specialised shop moved out of that building and moved next door to the one that's now boarded up. So it's a much bigger Specialised shop, but that's where the finishing line is. Good luck. Hope you do well on the day, and we look forward to seeing you on the start line, as ever. All the best.